Well, hello, and welcome to Stop, Let's Team Up. I am back with Jim Fetters, Jimbo Fett from Twitter. Say hi, Jim.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Twitter fam.
And we are here to talk Legionnaires. This is the reboot, and we're covering what is in the first volume, Book One, what they call Legionnaires Book One, which is, let me read what's on there. It is Legion of Superheroes 0, Legionnaires 0, and then Legion of Superheroes Volume 4, 62 through 68, and Legionnaires 19 through 24, with the creator teams of Tom McCraw, Tom Pyre, Mark Waid, Stuart Inneman, Lee Mulder, and Jeffrey Moy. Is it Moy? Does he call it?
It is Jeffrey. Yes,
it's
Jeffrey Moy.
All
Yep.
right. And this is what happened to. Well, I forgot they said this would eventually, because they call it Earth 247. Which is, I think, silly. That's a little wink to Marvel.
I agree. I agree.
But this is the Legion after the 0 Hour reboot, and I am a fan of a handful of the things post 0 Hour. I think 0 Hour was rough. They were trying to fix mistakes across the board, not just Legion, because they didn't plan well. Hawkman was an issue. Legion had some issues that every time they tried to fix it, they just made it worse. All-Star Squadron, it was devastating. You know, there's a lot of that. And some books went by the wayside, but it also created Starman, which is now my absolute favorite solo superhero book of all time.
That's awesome. I mean, Starman I never really got into, and it's one of the things that I definitely want to go back and correct. Just because obviously
it is well worth a read because it is so well crafted. It's so well crafted. It is the one James Robinson, other than maybe Golden Age, that's pretty much a master. That is a masterpiece of a miniseries. But
excellent.
I
was just going to say that I had I dabbled in a couple of the issues, but it never made a lasting impact on me at the time. Probably because I had a budget, and so I had to be kind of selective about what I read.
Golden Age reads better as a volume. It reads better as a single sitting. And but Starman is such good world building, and to link all the Starmen together, including Tom.
Yes, absolutely.
So his death in here is tied into what goes on eventually at the end, but. We're going to go, it's 3 story arcs. It's only 3 arcs. It's 3 story arcs, pretty much.
Well,
the introduction, the prison break,
yep.
And then Tangle Web, which is a continuation. It's a follow-up to the first Legion, Legion Death. Yep. Before we started, I was telling Jim, I haven't read this since it came out. Not the volume, not the trade, the actual issues. Because I read this religiously. Because I read Old Legion from 197 of Superboy through the Magic War. So that's my Legion. And I've said on Twitter that every time they reboot the series, they're diminishing returns, I think, for me. And I think for every fan. But this is your Legion. Right.
Absolutely. This is where I came on board. So this is So to me, this is the one that I go back and reread quite a bit, quite often. And to me, this first year, so there's this volume which is about 6 to 8 months worth of Legion comics.
These are thick volumes.
Very thick. And then there's the second one, both of which comprise essentially that first year. So and as we know, right, you know, to your point earlier about all the mucking about of the continuity with 0 Hour. This all really came down to all the changes that happened in the Superman comic in the late 80s, right? So right around the time when the V3 Legion ended, V4 starts, and DC editorial makes these sweeping changes where they say Superman was never a boy. So that's when
that was Byrne. I'm not going to even say it. That was
yes.
Byrne. That was Byrne's edict because he just didn't want to do. I just don't get he's a Silver Age guy. He's like me. He read a lot of Silver Age. I'm like, why did he get rid of Superboy?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he wanted to make but he was one of the first writers to go that Clark Kent is the person.
Right. And honestly,
and I agree with that take on Superman.
And,
that Clark Kent is the man. Superman is a disguise.
Yes,
I agree,
absolutely.
and I 100%, and I like Byrne's Superman. But
I did too, and I really enjoyed the Man of Steel.
I like all of them. I like it when they had the 4 teams. I liked when you read Batman and Detective. This is that thing where you had to read all the comics in a line because they actually paid attention to what was going on.
Right.
And not like where there are 29 Batman books nowadays and they're all over the place and they're all, continuity's not important. And it is. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be a slave to it. But they create a new continuity. And when I started to read this last week, we're delayed recording this because of work on me, but when I was reading it, I remember it being closer to the same I thought they did earlier and more often, not homages, but retelling of some continuity to make the characters jive for older fans like me. But they didn't. It is very different right from the get-go, other than the origin.
Yes, the origin of the team and the origin of the Rand's family powers with all their electrical capabilities is, I guess, lines in with the last telling because, as we know from Legion history, the origin or the evolution of the Lightning family's powers kind of expanded as we added more people into the mix there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we're left with basically the last version where the 3 siblings kind of were on a joyride and crashed on the planet Korble and got their powers. So that's there as well. But yeah, everything else is just a little bit different after we start the founding because then everybody gets drafted. It's a draft instead of people
and everybody's
trying out,
different. Like Colossal Boy is way more important. He's the lead, the initial leader, and then there's Kid Quantum, who we never saw Kid Quantum in the original.
Well, not in
we
the
saw
original,
a statue. We saw a statue of a. Was it a statue? Was there a statue, or just a name?
So remember, Kid Quantum was one of the retcons in V4. So what had happened, right? There was the whole story in V4 of the horrible. I hate this story. Prody being Garth, whole meme, right?
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Right,
I probably
exactly. And so Kid Quantum, James Cullen was essentially what they called him the soul of Antares, right? He was kind of the embodiment of the Proteans and the last of the race, basically. And so they had a whole thing where they retconned Kid Quantum actually being in the Legion, but then he was mysteriously killed, and he was the first Legion casualty. That changed that
because they redid that Lightning Lad had ever died.
That still happened, right?
Still happened,
whole thing.
Because I just got to that was the last issue I just recorded was the death and that's a huge thing because because what we said this before, Legion, when things happen, there's consequences to what you do to a character.
That's right, and it stays with them for issues and maybe even years, right?
Oh yeah, and even if like when they bring him back, they reference that he died once.
Exactly.
So when they could kill more, because they kill off Legionnaires. Legionnaires die a lot.
Yep.
I think the only other team book I read that is as bad as the Avengers. They kill a lot. They kill them,
Absolutely. But then they come back.
They come back and then they die. But this followed a different track. And I really enjoy. And now I'm rereading it. I'm going. Now I remember why I liked it so much.
Yes.
Because it's when it's. I mean, I can see Wade's hand in it. Wade at his best in it, really. Because I read his more recent Champions, which is him just doing this again.
Yes.
And it's just his reboot. But this is better than. I don't mind. His Champions was okay, but his reboot is a different take on this still.
Absolutely.
About kids.
And Wade, he's probably one of the foremost students of the Legion that ever was, right?
Oh yeah, I think him and Levitz are probably Levitz may have had notebooks. When he did it, he knew every plan, and the editors had no, we're going to go by this. I've been keeping these notes. I think he put them together when he started them with a kid or something, or he was doing it when he wrote it the first time. And then he's just one of those people who kept references and said, so he wrote his continuity down.
Exactly. And then Mark was somebody who basically consumed all of that and kind of internalized it. And he was essentially, after, once Levitz got promoted into a more important position, Mark Waid was essentially the person that was kind of.
Well, he was the editor after Levitz left, wasn't he?
Correct. He was the initial editor of V4. Then he left because I don't know if it was because of the editorial meddling or not, but yeah, he did actually step away. But then he came back but not as an editor. So at this point in time, at the end of the V4, so when 0 Hour was happening and that Legion on the Run storyline and all that stuff, that was when the awesome Casey Carlson was the editor of the line, and he did a great job. I thought he's one of my favorite Legion editors of all time too.
I'm a big Laurie Sutton fan. She did it.
Well, she was good too. But I think Casey, he cared about the Legion quite a bit, and it showed in how he actually planned out the stories. Because if you read the forward to this trade, this Legionnaires #1. It has a forward from Mark Waid from back in 2016, and he kind of tells the history of everything that happened, and it's very fascinating, right? I mean, they camped out and would spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do and how to plan this out.
This is very strategically planned. You can tell it is well frickin' edited.
If you notice, and also, I don't know this for sure. I've never actually asked anybody, and I keep on meaning to, but my suspicion is that this entire first year, starting with the Legion of Superheroes #0, Legionnaires 0, all the way to the end of effectively what is the Legionnaires 2 end of that book, that trade, that whole series of issues was planned out well in advance. Because when you look at it, Mark Waid's involvement of this run essentially ends at the end of the second Legionnaires trade.
Does the second one, remind me, does the second one end right before Abnett and Lanning?
No. So this series of books, the Legionnaires #1 trade, goes from the founding of the Reboot all the way through the introduction of all the characters that essentially create the core team for most of the Reboot, and ends at the end of the Tangle Web story that runs through here. It's in two parts. There's a first part where we have the death of Kid Quantum, and then the second, redo of the Tangle Web story, where the rest of the team meets Tangle Web, and there's a whole big story, and it gets resolved. And
we have the second. We've had two waves of draftees.
Exactly, so the second Legionnaires trade essentially covers the White Triangle Daxamite War. That happens, and then
that's just been hinted in this because Triplicate Triad's had her ass kicked.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot about that. I will say this about this. I like the reinvented names for the most part.
Yes.
I don't like Livewire.
That's always a weird one.
Lightning Lad's fine. That one's okay. I get it. But I think Triad's a great name. And I like Leviathan for Colossal Boy.
Yeah.
But I never did mind Colossal Boy. But I like those. I mean, what I liked was the build where you have it, and then you have all the political intrigue of Brand, setting it up. You have Marla as their kind of thing, and people being drafted, and getting to know each other. You know what I mean? Because it is Chameleon doesn't speak Earth or Interlac or whatever, so he's learning it. Brainiac's kind of off by himself for a while, and they don't even they're like Brainiac 5, and they're all busting his chops. I like that, and I like that Colossal Boy, the cop, would be the person they would put in charge, not this kid.
Well, to that effect, though, think about it. In this presentation, Imra is also presented she's presented as a cadet, I guess, at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, but Gim he was an officer.
Right, exactly. He was actually he actually was post-cadet. He actually had a commission or whatever they called it back then. So that made a lot of sense. And so not only do we see like folks like Marla, but we also see what's the classic bad guy that was from part of this whole original story, right?
Leland
Doyle.
Macaulay.
Doyle. Actually, I was thinking about Doyle first. If we look back, right, they put Doyle as the guy who's kind of the mastermind behind the terrorist attacks at the beginning, both the Brand assassination as well as some of the other bombings that happened just after in the book. And so he's the initial bad guy who was also, like, when they retconned, I guess the final retcon of the Legion's founding as well, prior to the reboot, Doyle was one of the people involved in that as well. He was one of the bad guys. So they're definitely, taking pieces from the prior runs and applying them very, very specifically into the story and having their own, having them have their own role in the new universe here as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I really like that. I think I like the introduction of characters. I like how they take it's a different order. I really had in my head that they did it really in almost the same order, but they do it in a completely different order.
Very different.
Very different. And then I always liked Lyle Norg, Invisible Kid, but I really like this one a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the characters transfer. I haven't gotten to where, my Legionnaire is Jan, is Element Lad. And I don't think they ever really capture my Element Lad again. I like this Element Lad, and I even like what happened to him in the Adamant Landing. It makes sense. It's
right. Well, and we don't even get to him in this particular.
Oh my God! It's like 30 or 40 issues in.
Right. He's well into the middle of the second trade.
I downloaded the membership roll order so I could have it in front of me, and I was reading it this morning at work, and going, what this? I don't remember this. And then I went, oh yeah, because everything's earned. Everything is so planned out and earned, and Wade does, in a very Marvel way almost, has them. Has the characters have a little bit of soap opera. The girls all become friends when they go out on a date night. And Andromeda's a racist.
Yeah.
She's a racist.
That's one of the most crazy things about this whole thing.
I forgot all about that. Oh, yeah, Daxamites are racist in this thing.
Yeah. And honestly, having just read through all of the prior Legion stories, and really liking the Laurel Kent character, or Laurel Gann character,
I really do like her.
By the time having this Laurel Gann be a racist xenophobe was a little bit shocking, and it definitely, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but it was supposed to, right?
Yeah, because you get to see her change as she bonds in that, and it's what makes the Silver Age Legion, the original run, so popular is that there are these interpersonal dynamics that are real.
Yes.
Because I think even prior to Levitz and like the 70s and 80s Legion, it's there in the Silver Age, especially when Shooter's writing it when he's a kid.
Yeah.
Because that, when he's like 13 or 14, me and Ron, a Fantastic Comic fan, just talked about Jim Shooter, and it's like, I'm not a big fan of his later work, but I do. His Legion is incredible.
Very good.
It's incredible, well ahead of its time in a way. It's kind of like he was reading Marvel and going, they do this, I'm going to just do it, sneak it in.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I wasn't as big of a fan of some of the work that he did in the 90s, and I have yet to get to his run on the 3-boot, so I'm only at about issue 20.
Those are the two hardbacks I just got in the mail, so I'm going to, I will, he was a good editor. He did some good things for Marvel, but I think he just kept fiddling, and I think sometimes I just don't think he was more an editor in later life, and I think it shows. It shows he's not really the writer. But that's a different episode. I'll eventually do his Avengers run because it's great. It's one of those little pockets where, all right, I like this, but you're barely there. He's not consistently there, and he can't maintain. For some reason, he's the editor, and he can't get a good artist because Perez left and stuff, all this stuff. But I really like the structure of this, and I like the first story. I like how someone dies quickly. I really I forgot how much I like when they're on the prison planet.
Right, when they're
That
in
is
the Planet Hell.
Planet Hell. It was, I forgot, and I forgot it. It took 4 or 5 issues for it to take place. I like that they took time on stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
And well, you have to think. So one of the things, and this is also from, like you mentioned earlier, this is before they put the Legion shields on there to track the which issue this was in order. This was a bi-weekly title at the time.
Basically,
right?
yeah. I mean, and DC was doing that with a lot of books, and then I think people complained is, what if I miss one? I don't know what order it's in. It's like,
yeah.
You know, but I like it. It was more like you were watching a TV show.
Right. Yeah, and because you would get it almost every week, and in fact, at certain points during this reboot run, you would have and I think this happened during the summers a few times, you would have each of these titles going to every other week. So then effectively you'd have for like a month or maybe even 2 months, I can't remember. You'd
always
have
remember this, or the annual would get squeezed in.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was, and I remember Legion annuals in the 80s and 90s being pretty good.
Yes, they were always good.
Yeah, they were always a good one and done. But all these arcs track so well, and the Planet Hell one I really like. I like the artist. This is really early Eminem.
Well, this is so.
Is this his first big book?
So Tom, we have Jeff Moy on the Legionnaires title.
Yeah, I love his.
He's just one of my favorite characters, and I really like his work a lot. But Stuart Eminem's stuff, I think he's only on that first Legion of Superheroes book, the issue 0, if I'm not mistaken. After this, it mainly goes to oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. All of a sudden, his name is right here. It goes over to Lee Moder. Exactly, is the primary artist for most of the Legion of Superheroes run in this trade. I'm not as much of a fan of Lee's work, definitely as compared to Jeff or Stuart. Mainly because I think he draws his characters too old.
There is a difference in their age between the two books. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for example, one of the new characters, one of my favorite characters, Kinetics, is introduced in this title, and the fun recruiting issue where you have Jim and Cam going to recruit various new Legionnaires, including the first appearance of Gates, by the way.
I forgot he was this early, and then we don't see him for a while.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I have to make my weekly Gates post. I have to yet to do that, so thanks. This is a good reminder of that. So we see that whole thread, and then of course he meets, or he and Cam go to recruit Kinetics from the planet Aleph, and we see Kinetics' brother, who is supposed to be Zoe's little brother, but he looks very old. He looks like he's in his 20s or something like that. When in fact the Legionnaires in this title are all about 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
There was we actually get confirmation on this in one of the specials that happens much further down the line from here. But at the time, and this is 94, 95 time period, and I'm going to go on the Wayback Machine here, so hang with me. The internet was in its very, very early days. So instead of going online and just, connecting up to whatever you want to go to, we had to go through CompuServe and Prodigy and America Online, right? Those were the gateways.
I remember that, sitting there waiting for shit to load. I'm going to go make a 6-course meal while you load me some chat room.
Totally. And so that you also had the Usenet capability as well, which was this, this giant messaging board basically that was accessible to everybody, and almost every subject known to man had some kind of a subdivision that you could communicate with and talk to other fans about and things like that. Anyway, so this is the early days of internet fandom, and on one of these, on AOL specifically, the DC creators would actually have a weekly chat with fans. So you'd have people. It was great. And so I was not on AOL much in those days, but when I did, I would try to go to these and just watch what happened. I was more of a lurker in the parlance of the day versus a participant. But they would have these AOL chats, and folks like Tom McCraw and Tom Payer and Jeff Moy would be on these things answering questions from fans. And then you'd have fans taking that chat log and then posting it on Usenet for the people that didn't have access to AOL. And so as part of this whole thing, I think Tom McCraw might have been the person that did this. And of course, Tom is a longtime Legion contributor. He's a colorist for almost more than 10 years, I want to say, on the titles. And one of the posts that he had was an actual listing of all the Legionnaires and their agents, which was kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool. I remember going and downloading Legion Outposts, and I worked in a print shop, so I'd print it out because I didn't have a computer at home. So I had that great information, that great history, and when people joined, and I had one volume of just all the issues in which you read them. And the keynotes. Before, like now, there are like a half dozen sites where you can pull. The one I pulled up is it's about different super teams, and it's got them Legion broken down, so I could go compare the memberships, because I was like going, I want to make sure I'm remembering this. And they do the retro boot with the changes in it. I went, I forgot it, because I have all the retro boot issues, but they were a slog to get through.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of go back and, in a decade or so, when I get there and with my Legion adventure.
Well, you don't like reading about Earthman?
Oh God, what a turd! What a turd! I don't mind the idea of having a redemption arc, but he's not redeemed. He just dies.
Yeah.
It's really just and I don't. There were just things that were out of character for them, but that's a whole different discussion. But I like this. I like these new characters. I like it has. For me, I always like this version as much as I like the original, because this is very true to the original.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, its attitude toward things, toward the characterizations, why they do things, and that you don't need Superboy to inspire them is something I really like, because that was kind of the problem they did after that. It was, we need an inspiration. Why don't you just have the Justice League be an inspiration? I mean, there were simpler ways to do it.
Exactly right. Which is what they do here, right?
Which is just that there was an age of heroes in the 20th century.
Yeah, they don't actually come out and say it's the Justice League, but when Brand brings the kids into his office, you see the Flash, you see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It's Justice League. Right?
It makes sense. The Big Seven or whatever. It makes so much more sense. And that you don't need Mon-El, because I haven't gotten to, I don't remember. So I don't remember how Mon-El, it's Mon-El, right? There's no hyphen in it. It's just
it's an apostrophe.
Oh, it's apostrophe. It's Mon-El.
Mon-El. Yeah, it still sounds Mon-El, but it just is spelled a little bit different.
Yeah, I listen to a podcast called the Entitled Star Trek thing, and they make fun of the apostrophe a lot. It's got that damn alien apostrophe in that. Yeah, and I've been watching Young Justice and hearing them say it, because all the things on Mars, I'm on season 4, and they're on Mars, and there's all the Marars and stuff like that.
Yeah, all the Martian names. But, so speaking of Young Justice, I believe, and I think I'm pretty correct about this, is that is the first time I think they've ever said the word, I want to make sure that I get it right. Bigzidal is Apparition's homeworld. So Tinyawaza.
I haven't gotten that far yet. I don't think they've said it yet, because I'm only in the second story arc, which is the Shadows story arc.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going faster. The season 3 took me a while. It was a slog in the middle.
Yeah. So season 4 is kind of the same way, actually. It gets good at the end, but the middle is a little bit of a slog for sure. At least it was for me. Anyway.
Well, it's 20. It's a lot of episodes.
Yeah.
It is a lot of episodes for a TV show, that is.
Yeah.
But I really liked all these stories. I liked all these characters. It was neat to see Kinetic again. I remember she's a really joyous. There's a nice energy to her.
Yeah, absolutely. I love her character a lot, just because she's fun. You see, just in the first appearance of her, right? She's very fun. She's flirty. She's, not quite flighty. She's just changing her outfits a lot, because that's kind of what she's into. And then later on, of course, on the girls' night out, she and Violet are kind of, there's a little bit of hijinks going on there, because she's trying to get Violet into a better, more club-like outfit, which ends very interestingly. And then, of course, but the cool thing is that then you see her actually in action on the second Tangleweb mission, and she's kicking butt. She does really well.
Yeah, I think they do real well with creating specific personalities for every character, and they're similar to the original versions of them. Shrinking Violet's a little shy, and Shrinking Violet, and I like that she becomes Leviathan when he dies, when they kill him off, and they whack a lot of people. I mean, there's a body count.
Yeah,
and
although
Sunboy,
most of them come back in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, what gets me is, and then they kill him in the retro boot. They kill Sunboy too. It's like they really he has 3 horrible ends. He has a bad one at 5 years later. He dies in this one. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. So Sunboy does not die in the reboot. He's never really in the Legion.
He's part of. Is he?
Well, no. So this gets a little bit interesting. I'm not sure what their take was on Dirk Morgana in this title for the creators, because he's in this book because he's kind of the catalyst later on when they have the Dr. Regulus story.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of the driver behind a lot of that. And then you see him later. There's a much later in the run, just before the DNA switchover. There's an elemental story that he's a part of as well. But other than that, that's really his only appearance. So if we back up a little bit, go back to the 5 years later stuff and the Legionnaires title as it was launched then, we did have, of course, the younger Dirk Morgan, younger Sunboy, and they changed his code name to be Inferno in that Legionnaires title right before the reboot. Now what happens is we have this alternate. There's obviously the Legion, and you mentioned Leland McCauley earlier, right? And there's that first mission with Tangleweb where we meet Leland McCauley, and he's a jerk and all that stuff as we expect. But of course he gets jealous, creates a competing super team called the Workforce, and one of the characters there is called Inferno and shoots flames and all that stuff, but she's a girl.
Yeah, and she ends up having a bit of a run in DC. She's in when they go for Frozen. What was it? Final Night, when some of them get trapped in the past, and I remember that because I liked Final Night because I liked Parallax. I had no problem with Hal losing his damn mind.
Right.
At least Hal was interesting. But there's that, and I forgot that Lightning Lad Livewire is not a member.
Yeah,
he's not a member for a long stretch.
Right. Yeah, he gets kicked out in favor of his sister, which is a nice little twist on the original Silver Age, right, where Lightning Lad dies, and then his sister takes his place, seemingly resurrected Lightning Lad, but it's actually his sister, his twin sister. But in this case, it's a little bit different because they're drafting and they're not killing off characters quite in the same way. So Garth joins the Workforce, and that's where we meet Inferno, and Ultra Boy is part of this team, and Karate Kid. Then
Ultra Boy eventually joins.
Yes.
I may just keep my mouth shut and keep reading, because I'm going, okay, after the 5 years later Omnibus 2, the next one is basically this volume and volume 2 in a hardback. That's
correct.
That's what they'll do. That will be the next one they do.
I hope so, but what I really like would be, and maybe I think I want this sooner. I can't tell which one I want more. The third volume of Legionnaires would go into the rescue, things like the rescue of Mon-El, the Emerald Legion, things leading up to that split to the 20th century where half the team gets stuck back there. But you're right. Going back to Inferno, she was one of those team that was trapped back in the 20th century, and in fact, she stayed there.
Yeah, she had a mini series.
Yeah, God knows why.
I think they realized she was a good character, and they're like, we need female leads.
Yeah,
I think they were just test driving it. I mean, I think nowadays you still have problems when you have a female lead character. I think
they have to be well written.
Yeah, and I just think sometimes you have guys. I think nowadays they work a little bit better is because they're having Kelly Thompson's writing them, and I like Gail Simone. I read her Secret Six. She could write. She wrote a really good John Ostrander comic. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
but
yeah, absolutely. But one other point, I don't think it happens at this point in the series or not. But obviously, we have our creative team here. But as once we get into the later
that's
parts of the reboot, we get Roger Stern is one of the writers here on the title. He's one of the writers. He becomes one of the writers of
see, I've
Legionnaire.
forgotten that, and then what's
Yeah.
wonder why it was good. I'm a huge Roger Stern fan.
Yeah, but
I
here's the interesting part where it comes to Legion, though, and you may not know this, but for a lot of the dialogue, like a lot of in fact, the dialogue, so both the boys and the girls and all that stuff, Roger Stern's wife, Carmela Merlot, was actually the person who wrote that.
Oh, she did the female dialogue?
Well, she did the dialogue. She
Okay.
just did so they would kind of work together and do a plotting and dialogue kind of thing. And he would, of course, get final say. But yeah, she absolutely helped with that. And my understanding is they tried to get her actual writer credit. She appears as in one of the credits for one of the later books. But yeah, interesting little bit of.
Oh, no, I like that. See, I'm going to kind of read this in chunks, because the Legion Adventure episodes every week is going to be, I'm going to be in Adventure Comics for the next year and a half.
At least, yeah.
It's like, it's like 75, 80 issues.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot, but I was very happy when I got to 20 and I realized, oh, it's the election of Saturn Girl and the death of Lightning Lad. This is such an important. This last one I did, it was such a, and I had that comic. My brother had owned a copy of it, so when I read that story, I read it in its original form.
Yeah,
you
actually had the actual real comic when you were reading it. Oh, that's awesome.
We had that and the Resurrection of Lightning Lad. My brother found those in comic shops. He remembered them. He kept all that crap in his head because he didn't have books and stuff. You had to keep it in your head. And he found them at a comic. I think he got them at the first comic shop we went, which is called the Comic Store in Northern Virginia. And we had them. And I read a lot. I had a nice run. I had almost all the adventure stuff in physical form for a long time. And then the archives started coming in, and I said, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell the issues. Some of them are beat up. Beat the shit. That one was well read.
As a good comic should be.
Oh, my God, yeah. Oh, see, because I would do a rerun of Legion once a year.
Right.
My friends would go, what? It's like you read Lord of the Rings every summer. Screw you. I'm reading 200 issues of Legion, and then I'm going to follow it with 150 of Avengers stuff,
There you go.
But, I see why this is a popular Legion for people, and I understand why this is yours and other people, because you're not that much younger than I am, but our comic reading starting, it's at this very specific point, I think, because I had an older brother giving me comics when I was very young. Like I was reading comics in like 74, 70, 72, 73, and 74. So, I was reading Legion regularly from, I guess it's 1975.
Yeah, and then with this stuff, I was probably in my mid-20s when this was coming out, when this started.
Okay, so you started it late, and you started it, okay. So you didn't read any Silver Age Legion?
No, not until much, much later in life.
Really?
So, yeah, so this was all new to me. So when I'm reading this originally, right, I don't understand all the references to all kinds of stuff. Like one thing that happens in the story that we haven't talked about is Mono from the Fatal Five is introduced, right?
This is one of the best recons. He is
right
now. He's a scary bad guy.
Yeah, he's also sympathetic. He's sympathetic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a reason why he's the way he is, and you're like, okay,
he's not evil. He's just, he's a hero to his own story.
Right. Exactly right. That's exactly right. So things like that, I'm reading for the first time, and I would go onto these online forums, right, and see people talking about them and having arguments about them and all that stuff.
Oh, you've changed my art, well,
Right. Because let's face it, when the Legion rebooted and these stories came out, there were absolutely a lot of people that were pissed off and just said no more.
I think this was almost as bad as when Supergirl died. As a Legion fan watching, because when Supergirl died, there were the Legion fans that were like 5 or 10 years older than me, who were like college age in their 20s at the comic shop, the comic book store, because I worked there in high school, but I was 17 or 18. I didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but I can see it.
And George Perez and Marv Wolfman were doing it, so I was like, these are my guys. Why would I care? You know?
Right.
But
I totally sympathize because yeah. I remember after reading, I guess I finished my latest reread of everything back in the last year sometime. I read that last bit, right, when the Legion kind of fades to white, right?
Yeah.
It kind of hit me.
Well,
like, wow.
I had problems with that. I really have problems with that story. I don't like Cosmic Boy being the Trapper.
Yeah.
I just think that's,
Yeah, that was a stretch, and I get why they did and why they made that choice, because I think it's, given what they were doing, it's the only thing that made sense. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But still, just seeing the visual representation of, gosh, what was it at that point? 40 years of history or whatever.
Oh
whatever.
yeah, they had made so many. They had made so many changes to the continuity inside Legion that weren't good. I don't think they were bad. I understood every choice they made. You know what I mean? I understood make it be mono. That makes sense. And then they tried Valor and all those comics, but DC was a little. I mean, I was reading it, but it wasn't on an even footing. There were too many patchworks. There was too much stuff going on, and I understood why they did it. 0 Hours. Like, we need to do a reboot. We need to kind of just make a course correction and simplify and fix all these other books and try to bring in new characters, kind of build a new audience, because that's why you do these events, because you need every so many years you got to refresh your audience.
Yeah, put a new coat of paint on everything.
Yeah, and I think Legion is successful because it discards all the things that hindered later post-Crisis Legion. It gets rid of all that.
Yeah.
But I don't,
absolutely.
And I understand why people my age who were like, I mean, Legion is, Christ, man, that's one of my books. That is one of my hardcore fandoms. But I like this because it was true to it. It didn't bug me as much, but I understood why it bugged others, because it's not my element lad. I think in this series I'm more an Invisible Kid, and I like Gates, and I like the Pharaoh lad that they introduce a great deal.
Yeah.
And later in it, and I really liked all these female characters. I liked Thunder when she came up, that we had a Shazam in the 30th century. She was great. I liked Monstrous. She's a great character.
And she's an interesting one. And of course, she's not in this particular run, I don't think.
No, I don't think even she's in the second volume either.
Yeah. But yeah, she was interesting. She actually goes through some evolutionary changes because she talks differently when she's first introduced versus the sweet character that they killed off in the DNA run. So very different, But I was just thinking that when I went back and read everything recently, and I got to the V4 stuff, the 5 years later, and starting to read through that, and having just to deal with all the retcon one after the other of these things, right? Of all these changes. Well, I thought they were actually creatively done. I felt like I was kind of, having to deal with more stuff, more baggage to carry to remember where I was in the world. And so having this reboot is kind of a nice, refreshing thing.
Yeah, it was. Because, I really, when 5 years later was happening, I was digging it. Because that was kind of what I wanted. I wanted a little grittier. I liked Giffin's complexity. I was like, okay, cool. You're trying something deeper. But about midway through, especially when they get to the new superhero identities, Legion on the Run, I'm like, oh, God, man.
Yeah.
This is Fonzie jumping the shark, man. What are you doing?
For sure. Yeah, I think I always considered them, when they blew up the Earth, that was kind of the jump in the shark moment.
Yeah, me. I think you're right. But then when you get back to when you have the two, because I thought Legionnaires was the better half of those books.
I agree.
I was reading it going, wow, okay, you understand. This is Legion. You're right. It's okay. I'm done with the gritty Legion. I just want Legion.
Yeah. I mean, you have these fun, bright kids running around and, and having adventures. It was, what's not to like? It was really good. It was interesting.
There were characters I wish they had brought over with it. Like, I would have liked Kent Shakespeare. I was a big Kent Shakespeare fan.
Yeah, I'm surprised him, as well as the I'm blanking on the character because I wasn't expecting to talk about her. The other girl who could phase through
Kano.
Kano, thank you. And of course, she does turn up later in the reboot, but never as an actual team member, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and what was the redheaded kid, Devin?
Devem, is that who you're talking about?
No, not Devin, but he was the redheaded kid who becomes like their kind of member in the 5 years later. I don't think he has a superpower. He just happens to be around. He's the one that finds the batch of clones.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name too.
Yeah.
I'm a horrible fan.
No, but see, I like that tail end of those is when the Legionnaires are introduced and they have the two groups.
Devlin Orion is who you're talking about.
Yeah, what's his name? Devlin
Orion.
Yeah. So I was kind of hoping.
He and Shrinking Violet have a little fling, I guess, once they come out of the.
But that's like hardcore Vi. That's like. So when this ended and they went to the 3-boot, you enjoyed the 3-boot.
Not at the time. I mean,
not at the time. You're enjoying it now.
I'm enjoying it now much more. Although I'm at the point in my current read now where I'm starting to remember why I dropped it at the time. I mean, I was a little bit resentful of the 3-boot when it came out because of my love for this particular one.
And I don't really remember when it happened. I wasn't actively buying comics toward the end, just money and what was going on. And I don't see why they did it other than to just do it, which happens a lot in comics nowadays.
Right. That's my understanding, and that's what I've always kind of scratched my head about this, because this is around 2005, and according to Mark Waid, DC editorial told him, and this would be Dan DiDio, would have been.
Oh, that explains a vodka.
Yeah, I think that's the answer right there. So effectively, he was told, well, we need to do something about the Legion because the sales aren't great, so we need to do something to reinvigorate the sales. So, and Mark Waid's story is that editorial said, the Legion's history is too complicated, we have to do another reboot. But, of course, they had just done a reboot 10 years earlier for the exact same reason, and
and it was a much more simple. It was a much simpler continuity.
It totally was.
It was It was so streamlined.
Yeah. So I never bought the argument of that the continuity was the reason.
Well, see, Dan Diodato was one of those guys that said screw continuity.
Right. Oh, for sure. But here's the thing: is that at the end of the day, it was all about the money, right? It was all about.
No, I mean, and I understand that.
Yeah. But of course, Dan DiDio ended up rebooting the Legion like 5 more times. So
yeah, I think in a lot of ways they've done it damage.
Yes.
Because every reboot has like I keep saying, has a diminishing return. And exactly. John's bringing it back. I think John's wanted to do what he did with Justice Society. I think that was his goal. And I like Jeff Johns overstays his welcomes on books sometimes. I think
so too.
But I think he's a good steward if you give him, because he's not, for the most part, he's a good steward of a character. He's good for a big chunk of Green Lantern. That was the best Green Lantern in decades.
Right. Well,
and his Justice Society is a masterpiece.
Well, there was a reason when he did what he did. He went back to essentially the end of the V3 run to pull his Legionnaires, right, and then hand them off into to eventually over back to Paul Levitz. So he did what I think maybe they should have done with the reboot, but meaning just skip over the 5 years later and just kind of keep moving from there. Just pick up where they left off in V3 or something.
Yeah, but they kind of say that 5 years later kind of happened and didn't happen, or I mean.
Did they?
I don't remember. It never made sense, except that there were members who had been members after the Magic War. But not the one. It was confusing as hell.
Okay,
it was really confusing because you had Yira was a member as Chameleon Girl, and it was like, really? And Night Girl was a member.
Yeah, and I remembered that they had in one of the Levitz issues. So after the Legion of Three Worlds happened, there was a nice little party map that you could put on the table and kind of trace the Legion history, and so you kind of saw where they fit in, where they kind of excised the 5 years later stuff from from the continuity. So I think that worked. But
yeah, well, I want to reread that again, and I mean, I want to kind of jump around, and we have talked about it, and I'm going to ask you this on the podcast. I do want to have you back in a couple weeks and compare the introduction of the Legion every time. 247, number one.
Yep.
I think you and me need to go back and go, which ones are the ones we're covering? I
am up for that. I am totally up
I
for
think
that.
I think it would be a great exercise to compare and contrast just their introduction, because I'm 20 issues in to Legion stories. I've just gotten past what this website great calls it the formative years, which is the stuff before adventure, and then they say the adventure years. They kind of break it up, and I haven't gotten to an origin yet. I don't think I get to one for a while.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They don't go into how the Legion actually was formed for a good long time, and in fact, I want to say that it might not be until sometime in the 70s, and maybe even the Bronze Era, where they get to the R.J. Brand story. Yeah, I may be totally wrong on that, but it's not for a long time.
I think it's somewhere in. I think it's in a Superman comic. I don't even think it's an adventure. I don't know, and I've kind of not looked for it. I'm kind of waiting to get to it, because I want to see how long it is before they give us an origin.
Yeah, I want to say it's quite a bit, because the origin, eventually you get into these stories about where does the Legion get its money? How does it operate? Right?
Yeah. And then Levitz goes, let's do the thing that R.J. Brand's a Durlin,
which
I loved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, you get to the point where the question is who's the patron of the Legion, who actually gives them money and funds them and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
In the original stuff, that doesn't happen for quite a while, even though there's a couple stories around taxes and things like that.
I read it in an issue of Secret Origin, like the original Secret Origin, the 1970s one.
It might have been there.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, okay. I'd have to go back and check, but because I definitely distinctly remember reading it in one of the Superboy and the Legion omnis.
I want to ask a question, because my brain is telling me that, and I'm going to ask you, because it goes back to these things, the origin. Am I remembering something wrong that there is in a comic one where Leland Mackenzie is really Vandal Savage? Or Ra's al Ghul is Ra's al Ghul.
So Leland Macaulay, who we first see in the reboot in this particular book. Eventually, by the time DNA takes over the reboot, they turn him into essentially Ra's al Ghul has actually killed Leland and has taken his place. So.
See, I always like that. My brain is going, am I just imagining that? Because I haven't read it in so long. And I've done some damage to my head in 25 years. I mean, how old is this comic? How old is Legionnaire now? When did this come out? 90 what?
This was 94.
Shit, it's almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, like I said, I was in my mid-20s, and now I'm over 50. So.
Oh, my God. Well, I'm done. I'm 20 issues into Legion, and I've not been born yet. I got another 12 issues of adventure before I'm born. My friend Vic likes to joke when we talk about Doctor Who is like I'm 1 week. I was born 1 week before the second season of Doctor Who started.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's like there's only one season of Doctor Who before I was born, and it's going into they're filming its 60th anniversary season with they brought back David Tennant, whatever. But Neil Patrick Harris is the villain.
I heard about that. I did hear
he's
that.
Playing
That's
a character. Awesome. He's playing a character who was played by Michael Gough, who was Alfred in the 80s Batman movies, called the Toymaker.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And he was his wife at the time was a companion of Doctor Who in the 60s.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's a big deal. And they were on the street today dancing, and Neil Patrick Harris is in full white tie and tails. It's very weird. The Toymaker's a weird character, so it's going to be neat. But I'm not even into. I mean, in my Legion adventure, I'm not even to when I was born, and it'll be years before. It'll be a couple years before I even get to the first one I read. So, but I do want to get that together. You and me can figure it out in a couple weeks. We need to figure out what issues we're comparing and contrasting, and maybe find out where that first. We'll also cover the first time they ever tell the origin.
Yeah, which I'm looking. I went over to the awesome blog page, the Legion of Super Bloggers site. According to them, it was May 1968.
Jesus Christ!
So that's the first time
in what book?
That story was done. Superboy. It was Superboy 147 apparently. So.
Oh man, hold on a second. Let's watch the app. Watch the DC app. Doesn't have it on there. Damn it.
It might. It's hard to say.
No, it's hard to tell. There's some really stupid holes. There are some really stupid holes in this thing. It's like if you scanned it for a hardback, put it on the damn app. 147?
Yep.
Oh, 1 second. Oh crap, that's the Marvel app, you idiot. I gotta put them where they're not next to each other on my phone. I do like the app. It helps me with some comics reading. But you don't have the DC app, do you?
I do.
Okay.
I absolutely do.
Do you? I mean, I like it for certain stuff.
I think it's great. I mean,
it's easier to navigate than it was. I think they've tweaked it.
It's easier to navigate than Comicsology, so that's all that counts.
Oh my God, I've not heard anybody say anything nice about that reboot, about that that patch. But it's the Marvel one used to be great because you could set dates. And I don't like that you can't I can pick a character. You can't pick a character and do them in order.
Yeah. You can't really do that in DC, unfortunately, which is when we read things like the reboot here, because you have these stories that switch between LSH and Legionnaires and then back to LSH.
Nope.
It's hard to...
The first issue of Superboy in this app is 195. Which is it the first one I read? No, it's not. Oh, it's 195, then it's 200.
Yes.
Then it's 222.
Yes. Yeah, those are all the ones that I was looking for last year because of the stupid way they've...
Oh, the Treasury's in there, though. But I got that. Did you? I bought that hardcover version of the Treasury where Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl get married. They did a nice square. It's gorgeous. But I still have my original, but it's fallen apart because imagine that. I laid down in the living room. Someone posted an Iron Man cover, and my response on it, Twitter, was the most traced cover in our comic library because I traced that. It's the Dreadnought. It's a early Perez with Bob Layton inking it of Iron Man fighting this character called the Dread Knight because they couldn't use the Black Knight because that was an Iron Man villain because they had made him a hero. So they created a new one.
So your comic copy is very worn down from all the tracing.
It would have been. Yeah, I sold that ages ago. There are books I miss having, old comics, and some of these Legion. I mean, I have a couple of them that they were so beat up no one was going to buy them. I had my Adventure 247 with no cover. I'm really thinking about sending it to be slabbed. It'll be a 0.0. It doesn't have a cover.
It's just a piece of history that you.
I know. I mean, I've thought about framing it because it's the splash page. It's it's I think the Legion story was the primary. It wasn't the backup feature because they were just introduced. It was that main Superboy story. But let's figure out what these titles are. I mean, let's figure this out. There's original, reboot, 3-boot, retro boot.
Right.
52. Is that a reboot?
You know what? That's a really good question, and I mean, technically speaking, I guess it is. But when I read through those, it just seems to carry over from the pre-52.
And then the Bendis Sook boot.
Correct. Yeah.
Bendis boot is that what we're calling it now? The Bendis boot.
I don't know.
I haven't read the last 2 issues of the Legion Justice League. I'm just gonna get the trade and read it in one kick.
That's what I would recommend.
It's Bendis. I'm sorry. I think he has good ideas, but sometimes I just don't think he can plot a damn comic book.
I am looking forward to issue number 4, oddly enough, because it's where the founders are trapped in Gotham City with Batman Beyond, and Batman himself is trapped in the future. So I'm really kind of curious to see how that plays out. So
that sounds interesting.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Jim, thanks for being on. I appreciate it. The next episode you folks will hear after I record this will be My Legion Adventure 21, which will be Adventure Comics 305. So I don't even remember what's in that one. It's kind of like I don't look ahead until like a day or two before I'm going to record. I read it a couple times.
It's a surprise.
It is. Sometimes I'm like, I almost forgot that Lightning Lad died in the first election. I forgot that was the same story.
That was the first story. For some reason, I forgot that as well.
It was, yeah. And it was very, hip and mod.
Yeah.
And I'll have you back. We'll probably do volume 2 sometime soon.
That'll be great. That's my favorite of the 2. So
all right. I'm gonna probably do when I do one of my the first video episodes I do directly for YouTube will probably be my review of the 5 year later Omnis, because I just kind of want to. I have them. They're hard to read in Omni.
I just don't want to break my arm. I don't want to accidentally break the spine or anything like that, because
I watched a couple of videos and tell you how to do it.
Oh.
And, you kind of you let the cover come down and you hold it down, and then you open it slowly from the center. Every one of Near Mint Condition did one, and another guy, 2 more other people did how to break in an Omni.
Okay.
I'll
have to watch that.
Yeah, and are they stitch binds? If they're stitch binding, you're good.
I think so.
If it's glue bind, I'm not sure. I would not buy a book that thick with a glue bind.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's gonna fall apart. I just don't know how. Me and a buddy were watching the Death and Return of Superman Omnis coming out, a new printing.
I'm thinking about getting that one, actually.
I am too. I'm gonna see if I can get it cheap, on cheap, one of those websites, because it's a big one. I'd like it, but it's all those double page spreads and single things. Is in that book that fat. How are you gonna do it? And what they do is Death. It's a gatefold.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So. But I can't wait. We'll talk more Legion soon. You have any recommendations that you're reading comic-wise that you would recommend to somebody?
Nothing especially new. I'm kind of going behind, because in the DC app they release things a little bit later, like 5 or 6 months after.
Yeah.
I've just finished Far Sector, which I thought was really kind of cool. I really kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've got the first 12 issues. I haven't read them yet. I'm kind of it's somewhere buried in my read pile.
I really enjoyed it. It has a nice self-contained story of this new world out in the universe that was I thought, very well done. And then I'm 2 issues into Human Target, the new Human Target.
How is that? That looks very interesting to me.
It's very cool. If you like very noir type stories. It has that feel to it. The art style is very unique, and I really enjoy it quite a bit.
I'm gonna check that out. I like most of the stuff he does. I haven't read the Mr. Miracle, which I want to try.
I'm not as familiar with Tim's broader work, but I really like this. This is.
I'm a big fan of Human Target as a character.
Yeah, it's a neat concept. But I'm also kind of a sucker for kind of film noir stories if they're done nicely or done.
Yeah, that's kind of what intrigues me, and that's why I was one of my favorite books in the '90s was Suicide Squad and Checkmate and those. Yeah,
the spy type, almost spy type.
Yeah, that's the mix of superhero and spy. So yeah, I'm a huge.
In fact, I was just to say, in fact, so we're talking going back to Legion for a second. In the 3-boot, I just finished issue 19 of the 3-boot recently, and that has the same kind of feel to it. It's a chameleon story, because he's just he's being a spy.
Yeah, I miss that. I've been in the Silver Age, the espionage squad.
Yes.
Yeah, so I like that.
Well, which we actually, in the reboot, we actually get to see them in the next volume of Legionnaires.
Yeah, so. I remember they had it too. So, well, folks, that's it for this week. You'll hear, if you're listening to everything, I'll be back with more Legion and then some Defenders and whatever the vote. I've got a poll up. Please check it out. I have replaced Brave and the Bold. I did Brave and the Bold 87. I put Brave and the Bold 200 in there. Batman teams up with Batman. I think that, but it's Superman and the Steve Ditko Starman, or the Thing and the Golem, or Spidey and the Human Torch. So pick, and that will be my next team-up issue.
I voted for Batman.
So did the guys from Earth 2 podcast. I think they did too. All they said was I put it up there, and he commented, "Guess which one I picked?" And I was like, "Duh." I like it. It's a great comic. I did it because Billy D from A World on Fire, the All-Star, and his and the Bronze Age Horror podcast is going to be doing a Bob Haney Brave and the Bold centric podcast, and there's a lot of really good zany Bob Haney. He does all the ones with like, where is this on Earth 2? Because it's Wildcat. No, it's just because I'm teaming two people up.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Jim, and folks. Remember, be safe, be smart, be kind, and read some comic books.